So I don't know that I consciously ever give anybody bad advice, but the advice that I would give every person I talk to, every single time. How you can be the greatest salesperson on the planet.
Welcome to the Rethink Sales Show. My name is Derek Kelly. I am joined once again by Jim Shorkey. Jim, people always ask, they're like, how did Jim do what he did? That's always the question. And I love, it's like somebody last week about Rethink Sales and Rethink You. And they're like,
Right.
It's just amazing, this process. And so what is the best piece of advice? Remember, this is unscripted. Jim doesn't, for you guys listening, Jim doesn't know what I'm about to ask him. It's not pre-planned. This is not rehearsed. This is live. So what is the best piece of advice you think you've ever given someone? And what is the worst piece of advice? So let's start with the worst piece of advice first.
I don't consciously ever give bad advice. I just don't.
That's right. Yeah,
I really think about what it is that I want to say when people do ask me questions. We do sit down. I do a lot of, they'll give me a bad idea and I tell them they're full of crap. I do.
Yeah.
I point blank. That's not true.
Yeah.
It's just not true.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people deal in what I call absolutes.
Yes.
Which is an example of an absolute would be people don't care. And I was like, what do you mean
Nobody's
people don't
doing
care?
business.
Yeah, nobody's doing business, or the economy is really bad, and therefore here's what I have to do. And I just don't deal in absolutes. Typically, absolutes are not true. And interestingly, I think I told the story before, but I'll repeat it. I had a good friend of mine tell me that people don't care. And I'm like, what do you mean people don't care? People don't care. I'm like, do you care? Yeah, I care a lot. Sort of the bat, he's wrong because he cares, right?
Yeah,
So there's a person
right.
that cares. People don't care. Yeah, he does. I said, do I care? Yeah, you care a lot, Jim. Does Amy care? My wife, does Amy care? Yeah. Does Nicole, your wife, care? Yeah. And I said to him, I said, give me an example of somebody that you know who doesn't care. And he's looking up in the air, in his eyes, and it's for trying to think of somebody. And he says, this is exactly what he said. He says, damn you, Jim. He says, you got me. You got me. I said, come on. People do care.
Yeah.
People really do care. Stop the bull crap. People do care.
Yeah.
But I'm not really answering your question. I don't give people bad advice. Not consciously.
Yeah,
If it does prove to be bad advice, I would very much apologize. But typically that's not going to be the case because I have so much information in this head that it may not be the best advice, but it's going to be pretty darn good. And according to everything I research, close enough is good enough. Close enough is good enough. Yeah, granted, 10's better, but 9's pretty darn good.
Pretty darn good.
8's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So sometimes close enough is good enough.
Yeah.
And we talk about that in Rethink You, the strategic continuum.
That's right.
And we don't say it's great if you have an A plan or an A plus plan, but you really don't need an A plus or A plan. You need, we said at minimum, B to B plus, right?
That's right.
Minimum. And then it comes down to execution. Okay. If I execute a B2B plus plan at 100%, just to pick an arbitrary number, it's 100% I'm on the money, versus an A plan at 50%, I will crush you.
Yeah.
With my plan, that's not as good as yours, but I'll crush you because of the execution.
Right.
The plan is all about the execution more than anything. We have a plan. We need to change the plan. No, you need to change the execution.
Yeah, and I was going to say that about your advice because you may give great advice and somebody may not execute it.
Well, that would be
doesn't make it bad advice.
No, heck no. So I don't know that I consciously ever give anybody bad advice, but the advice that I would give every person I talk to, every single time, is number one, let's define your goal.
Yes.
We have to get very clear on your goal. Why are you here today? Why are you talking to me? What do you want to happen? What's your goal? So it's going to be very clear, crystal clear, according to Napoleon Hill. You got to have a picture of it. You got to be able to write it down. You got to be able to smell it, hear it, the whole thing. What is your goal? And then number two, what is your reason why? And the reason why cannot be surface level. It's got to be why, and then why. And I say 7 whys. I do. You heard me say that. 7 whys. We got to ask why 7 times, maybe 10. What's the reason why? And they said, because of this. Well, okay, well, why is that important to you? Because of that. Why does that even matter? And eventually we'll get to the tears. Like it comes down to, I'm talking to a good friend of mine, wants to buy a house in Florida. Why? And we start going through it. And I said, he talked about wanting to go to Florida to play golf with his dad. Wow. And I said, is your dad in the picture? And he started crying. He said, no, he's not. I said, you got to get him in the picture. Now we have a goal. I want to take my dad to Florida. And he had that in the back of his mind, but it wasn't as succinct
Right.
as let's get him in the picture. Let's get a picture of him. You and him are on the golf course in Florida. Got your golf clubs in front of you, the classic golf pose. Well, let's take that picture and let's get that on the mirror.
Right.
That's got to be on the mirror, not the house in Florida. The house in Florida is not about the house in Florida. It's about Dad. And when I got him to zero in on that, changed everything because it was about his dad. And then also about the kids and his wife and all those factors. That's what we got to keep in front of us.
Yeah.
Not the goal, the reasons why.
And I had this epiphany. You challenged me a year ago. You said, Derek, I don't think you went deep enough with your reason why. And so I thought about it because people often say, why do you do what you do? Why do you spend time helping business owners and helping people grow their business and strategy and all, just even from that side of life? And I thought about it and I said, wait a minute. I figured this out because our goals are connected. I've had so many people help me as a guy who was a premature baby, whose brain wasn't supposed to develop. I had so
Not
many.
supposed to be doing this right now, I can tell you that.
Not supposed to be sitting
No
here
way.
having this conversation.
No way.
But I started to dig deeper the why. And all the way at the bottom was people gave to me.
Yeah. That's
I
a
want to
biggie.
give back.
That's great.
And I met someone.
Massive chill. Massive
I
chill.
met someone named Jim Shorkey that wants to do the same thing.
Some nut.
And I have found very few people have that same why deep inside of them.
Let's just do our part. Let's do our part. And maybe with what we're doing and the example that we're setting, and again, let's not forget, stroke recovery. This is not something I'm making up. I had a hemorrhagic stroke. I had 3 brain bleeds. I should have, could have, would have died. I should have. And it was very precarious. But I also had this volition when I'm on my back and I'm not even out of bed yet. I thought, I'm going to beat this. I'm going to beat this. I'm going to beat this.
Yeah.
And I thought the only thought that came to my mind was Think and Grow Rich. Yeah. So you're asking me about what advice. For me, it was all about that book. And in that book, there was a lot of different steps.
Yeah, sure.
Because he interviewed
There's quite a
500,
few.
500 of the wealthiest people in America over a 25-year stretch. And he came up with this 13-step philosophy. But for me, probably one of the most impactful parts of the book was Seek Expert Counsel.
Yes.
If you're the smartest guy in the room, if you're the smartest girl in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
You need to get out.
Right.
You're not going to get any better in that environment, other than if you really have the wherewithal and the time and the energy, you would then be a mentor.
Right.
But when I was bankruptcy imminent,
You didn't need a
how could I be a mentor? I'm going down. So I needed to find people that were smarter than me. And the only guy I could think of was Mr. Hamilton.
Yeah.
He was my dad's former partner. He had the boat, he had the cars, he had the houses. He had everything that I really wanted. I wanted these things. I wanted material things. I did. And if you don't, that's okay. But I did. I wanted the fancy car. I wanted the classic cars. I wanted the house, the whatever. And so he was the only guy I could think of. And I went to Mr. Hamilton and I told him, I said, Mr. Hamilton, I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I can remember sitting there in the chair and he's right across from me. And behind him is on the wall, it says, you got to wanna. This big sign says, you got to wanna. One of our things we talk about, you got to wanna. And I remember sitting there thinking, I want to, I really do, but I don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I didn't know how. So maybe you're one of those people that really wants to, but you don't know how. And we hopefully can be that guide to show you how.
Right.
Because if it worked for us, then it will, logically speaking, mathematically speaking, it will work for you. And so I use this thing called Rethink You 2.0. It's not that I use it, it's what I did. There's a difference there. It's what I did, and then we took that and documented it into Rethink You 2.0, which was a evolutionary process involving myself and Chuck Bellino and Steve Gardner, and then Derek, and these different folks. And we just put it into this system. And then we've had the good fortune of being able to test the system with a lot of people. And guess what? It works.
Yeah.
Rethink You 2.0 works. It will improve your marriage. It will improve your business. It will improve your health. Whatever it is that you choose that you want to do, you better get to choosing. Because that's the first step, is choosing what it is that you want to do. Get very clear, get very crystal clear. Your blood pressure to what do you want it to be? And then you seek expert counsel to figure out, what do I need to do? Oh, geez. And so anyway, so when I went to Mr. Hamilton, and he says, told me to come back the next day, call me James, come back tomorrow morning, James, I'll have a list for you. I go back and I get the list and I've got it in my hand. I'm looking at it, scanning it real quick. And I thought, man, I'm not doing anything on this list.
Yeah.
Nothing. I wasn't doing anything on the list.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to start doing the list.
It's so true. I remember going to a mentor of mine and saying, I want to grow this team. I've been telling you about growing our team. And he's grown teams before. And I said, what are you doing? He gave me a list. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not doing any of this. And so
thankfully, but you know what? If you were doing all this stuff, then you just say, oh, crap, I'm doing all this stuff.
oh, yeah.
So the fact that you weren't doing any on the list, now for me, I was bankruptcy imminent. I was scared to death. I was going down. Checks were going to bounce. It was bad.
Yeah.
But still, I had hope with Mr. Hamilton. I knew he knew. So I just did what he told me to do, blind trust, and it worked. And I could see the needle started to move, and I just kept doing it. And I kept going back for more advice. And he was so helpful to me, so helpful. And that's why we're here today, because of that.
Yeah. Guys, that's Jim's best piece of advice. Seek expert counsel.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
It is.
I didn't know what you were going to say. I thought you might have said,
oh, yeah.
Think it through the whole way through, which you talked about in the previous episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, seek expert counsel. That's been the moments where I've invited people to speak into my journey, where that's been the most, that's had the most overall impact long term.
Yeah. It's very interesting. If you find somebody that's successful doing what you want to do, and you have that conversation, a great question to ask them would be, what would be your favorite book that had the most impact on you're very successful, man. You got a beautiful car, beautiful house, your wife, your husband is a beautiful man, whatever the case may be. What's your favorite book? And he or she would say, this book here. I'm getting that book. I'm getting that book.
Yeah.
I'm going to read that book, pen in hand, highlighter in hand. I'm going to say, holy cow, no wonder this gal is so successful. Look at this. Wow. I'm not doing that. I got to start doing that.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you, Jim.
Pleasure,
and thank you guys. Again,
thank you.
Like and subscribe. Really hitting that allows the algorithm to know that you've enjoyed this content and will share it with more people. And subscribe, because we put out videos weekly, every single week on Monday morning at 7 a.m. We are live. People expect us there, and we are there every
That's wonderful.
single
Great
week.
work, Derek. Great work.
Awesome, Jim. Thanks. You. I'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you so much.